Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the MicFlayers podcast. Coming to you today, huddled around a warm Arcana Forge. I am your host, Martin O'Dwyer, and today with me, as always, is your host, Conor O'Brien. How are we doing today, Conor?
Oh, good, buddy. How's things?
Good. Exciting times, man. Rumors of a new D&D book.
I heard, yeah. So I heard it was Dragonlance, and then I heard it wasn't Dragonlance.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to expect anymore.
I saw some rumors of it being like Fae-based as well, I think.
I would not be against that.
Either would I.
Yeah, I feel like they've ignored Fae and fairies and the politics of the various Fae courts for far too long. I would love if it was like an adventure book based in that, with a lot of I'm already jumping in something here. I like when they give you like source material to work with. When it's not just like, here's an adventure, because that's fine. But here's an adventure plus there's like a chapter or two at the start of the book that explains the Seelie and Unseelie courts and the various Fae lords and all that. I want that. I'd love that expanded upon.
Yeah, I think they touched on it in Mordenkainen's tome, didn't they?
I believe Mordenkainen's had some, but I think they focus more on...
It was still, I think it might have been the Eladrin stuff, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did for a little bit. Not a lot. It was a lot more like what I would consider outer realms, whereas the Shadowfell and the Feywild are inner realms that surround in that cosmology anyway.
Yeah.
But I think they focus a little more on the outer realms. I'd love if it was fairies. There's not enough Fae and fairy based stuff in the base material.
Yeah, I think I saw it in like Nerd Immersion or something. There might have been like, I think he put up. I haven't watched it, but I think I saw him like, it was like, is the new book Fae based? And I was like, oh, that'd be really cool actually. And
he's usually very tapped into it.
Yeah, and on the ball. He's always the first guy out with videos. It's real impressive. He does great stuff.
I don't think he sleeps. Every time he'll do a video and he's like, it's just him at his computer, and he'll be like, "Hey guys, what's up?" And he'll just be like, "It's 11 minutes past 2. I got to be up in 4 hours for a shift or whatever." And I'm like, "How are you going? Where are you?" And then he has like at least one kid. I don't know if he has a couple kids, but he has at least one kid. And I'm just like, and you've kids. Only I think he's 2 actually. And I'm like, you've kids as well, and you do this. You post videos pretty much every day, and not just bullshit things you can spin off. Like, it's always solid, interesting content.
Workhorse of a dude.
Oh man, I don't know how he does it. I wouldn't be able for it.
Yeah, but it's super interesting. And as someone who has a spear of face laying, please.
Yeah, give me a reason to put more Fae in Martin's path so that he can take them down.
Yes, please. Cool. But yeah, that's pretty good. I'm doing pretty good as well. But yeah, just was mostly, that's kind of the big news, I suppose, in D&D at the moment, really.
Yeah, all quiet. No new Unearthed Arcanas or anything just yet. We'll probably get one soon, because I know they released one before Christmas. And then what I imagine was their holiday break, so not a lot then. And then we'll probably get something to follow up with that in January or maybe February.
I would imagine as well.
It's usually monthly, isn't it?
Yeah, it's usually monthly. And I would imagine as well, if we are coming out with a new book soon, if that has player options in it, or even just like DM tools, because they'll do them for DM tools sometimes as well, with like traps and stuff.
That might be a kind of smart thing to do. Like,
but that's what they did for the last book. That's what they did for Tasha's. Like nearly everything in Tasha's had been out a year prior in Unearthed Arcana and got that chance to be like refined.
Oh yeah, what I mean is like they may not do, like, they're not going to do a whole other as Tasha's / Xanathar's.
Yeah, true. Not immediately after. Yeah.
Yeah, not immediately after. But what I'm saying is, if they did something like, what's the Greek?
Mythic Odysseys of Theros.
Yes, the Theros one. If they did something like Theros or Ravnica, they have player options in them.
Oh yeah,
like the Spore Druid and the Oath of Glory Paladin.
I was going to say the Oath of Glory. Yeah, that came from Theros.
If you really want to make money, put player options in books and I will buy them, even if it's only 2 classes or 2 subclasses. I will buy the book if it means getting those, because I don't always play the adventures, or I don't always I wouldn't ever run in Theros or Ravnica, I don't think, but I like reading those things, and I especially like when you give me magic items the monsters in Theros actually are amazing.
Oh, and like the divine boon system and the piety system that they have in Theros is so cool.
Yeah, like if you put it, there's a lot you can put into it, but if they did something like that, even if it's like, here's a I know they're not doing Dragonlance.
Yeah.
For talk's sake, let's just say it was Dragonlance, which we don't think it is. But if it was, and they were like, oh, it's Dragonlance, and there's a new Wizard subclass, and there's a new Warlock subclass.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, cool. Well, I want those subclasses, so I'm gonna buy the book.
I'm not a Magic player, but like I picked up Theros immediately just because I love Greek mythology. And as soon as they were like, oh yeah, it's a Greek based D&D, I was like, yeah, cool. I'm already typing in my credit card. We're good. Like, as soon as and then I saw like, so there's some really really cool stuff, and there's particularly some of they're like legendary tier artifact kind of weapons. There's some really cool ones tied to the Theros gods. And like if you're a Magic player, it must be like doubled up because I'm like I haven't played Magic in years and years, but like I would imagine if any of the stuff that I was super into Magic came out in D&D, I would lose my mind. Oh no, wait, sorry, they did a collaboration with League, and I did lose my mind. So yeah,
those three classes were actually only temporary for some reason, weren't they?
Yeah,
and that annoyed me because I was like, they were cool subclasses.
They're it's the same as old archived unearthed arcana. That's archived unearthed arcana is really hard to say, but it's the same as that. So what I did was I made three characters that are all like those three things.
Yeah.
So and I can just, if I ever want to use it, I can just edit the character.
If you looked into homebrew stuff.
Oh yeah, I think a bunch of people did just homebrew copies of it too.
Yeah, player submit or user submitted stuff. You'd probably find ones that were
they were really cool.
People do it, but I find people always try to put their own spin on it, and I'm like, just be the good person that provides me with the base thing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but
that's your opinion.
The Magic and D&D crossovers have been pretty cool so far. Anyway, like any of the stuff that we've gotten over has been interesting. I think was it Ravnica? Ravnica was it? No, Eberron. Wayfinder's Guide to is Eberron or Ravnica? No, Ravnica is a.
What's the question?
Which one of those is a Magic world? Ravnica isn't it?
Well, I mean, Eberron is as well. Oh, sorry, wait, Magic the Gathering world.
Yes,
sorry, like they're both magical, Martin. It's D&D. No, sorry, there is Ravnica is a Magic world. Yeah, Eberron is just a D&D thing.
Yeah, I knew Eberron was D&D, but then I questioned myself. I was like, oh shit, no. Okay, never mind. But yeah, I like any of those crossovers have been cool. Like there's some interesting stuff from Ravnica. I think I'm actually using some Ravnica stuff in my current campaign. I have an NPC with an archer on blade. That's pretty fun.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, she's got an archer on rapier, so she can give herself a little bit of temporary hit points, isn't it?
Do you know what? It's really weird. I was literally reading this the other night.
I should know. I've started out the character with her. I just haven't used her yet. used it with her yet.
The actually the Theros book has some phenomenal art in it.
Yeah,
it's like they actually one thing they do, which I also kind of felt like the base monster manual is lacking. There's not a lot of celestials, and those that are just various forms of angels. Not all of them, but some of them.
They are cool though. Like there's just few. Just few enough of them.
And actually the Quattle, I want to say, are also.
The like celestial like feathered serpents,
snakes. They're celestials as well. But there's some really cool celestial stuff in it, and they all kind of look like is it Helios, the god who used to ride his chariot as the sun across the sky?
Sun god,
yeah. There's a couple that have like chariots or ride these mythical Greek style beasts, and they're like demigods or whatever. It's really really cool. But they're all, the art of them is always them atop a winged lion with a starry sky and clouds behind them and a glowing sword. It all looks so good.
So cool. So very cool. Oh, cool. So speaking of cool stuff, which is going to be
solid segue there, right?
Excellent segue. Today, Conor, I thought it would be cool to talk about player roles, and I mean to be more precise, I suppose. The ideas of like roles you fulfill in the party, either in combat or outside of combat, and the things those roles are good at and bad at, and sort of examples of classes that can fulfill those roles. Sort of like an addendum to our chat about new player stuff and how to get into D&D. So if you are just getting into D&D and you're trying to figure out what you want to play, if you don't have like a gut instinct towards something, we're going to kind of give an overview of some of the different roles and kind of what they do and the classes that can fulfill that, and then just kind of have a chat about that, and it hopefully can give someone out there a bit of guidance if they're trying to create a character.
Yeah. If you guys haven't watched our last week's episode, you should definitely check it out. We talk about how and how you can get into the hobby, basically. What are the kind of entry levels, some of which are free. There's options out there you can just start playing for free. There's options where you can have a little bit of buy-in. There's options where you can be like myself and Martin, there'd be just utterly crazy people who spend all their money on this. But there's different levels, and this is, like Martin said, kind of an addendum to that, where we're like, right, now maybe you've bought a couple of books and you're starting to play. What character do I play? And this will kind of, I think, fill in on that for anyone who's wondering.
Yeah. And this would be something that would be an ideal kind of thing to read, to watch, or kind of have a listen to before going into like a session 0, where you're all kind of getting together to talk about what you want to play and characters you want to build and that kind of stuff, just to make sure you're on the right foot and you know what you're getting into. Because I know, like, I have made that mistake before where I picked like a class or a character. Like I started out monk and I just couldn't understand it, or I didn't get it, or I built it wrong. I know I wasn't liking it, so I ended up switching to fighter, which suited me much better. So I think if I like having that kind of guidance around then, or around when I was making my character at first, I think that would have been helpful. So I think it'd be a fun thing to talk about too.
Yeah, same. I when I first started, I played Ranger, which worked out fairly well for me because I just wanted to be the Green Arrow. I was watching Arrow on CW at the time, so I was like, I just want to be the Green Arrow. And Ranger worked out pretty well like that. But I also, like, knowing what I know now of the game, I was playing that Ranger so straight and so one-dimensional. Like, arrows, I just shot arrows at everything. If there's a baddie, I shot an arrow. If there's a chandelier, I shot an arrow to knock it. If there's someone fleeing, I shot them in the leg with an arrow. Like, that's all I did. And I feel like, knowing what I know now, I'd be like, oh, I know there's way more that a Ranger can do and or be, and that you can have more roles than just be the guy that makes people into pincushions.
Oh, hell yeah. I think a very... So I'll leave that, what I was about to say, to when we get to one of the player roles we're talking about, because I think it's a good one to bring up because it's unusual.
Okay, right. I'm interested.
Cool. So the first one that jumped to my mind when I was thinking of player roles, and it's not even one I play often because it's not super my style, but it's the glass cannon. It's one of your traditional ones. It's one that's very appealing to a lot of people. The name glass cannon comes from the fact that you have a really high damage potential, but you cannot take a hit. Not to save your life.
Low hit points, low armor.
Exactly. You might have some mitigation options, but overall, you are not the person that needs to be up on the front line where everyone is swinging axes.
It's the kind of thing where if an enemy barbarian or an enemy knight or something like that walks up on you with a greatsword, your next move should be to get away as quickly as possible because you will not last long.
I'm going to introduce 2 phrases that are key to this class, and it involves a bit of homebrew, but bonus action, drink a health potion. Action, disengage.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's your key when someone comes up to you with a glass cannon, or if you have any movement abilities. So glass cannon for me, I thought of rogues was what I thought of, and sorcerers for me were the first 2 I thought of. But I think that's probably just more to do with the classes I've actually played with, and have like memories of them doing ridiculous shit. But Conor, what comes to mind for you when you think of like a glass cannon in D&D?
Well, yeah, my mind definitely goes towards spellcasters first, because all spellcasters have at the very most a D8 hit die, which obviously determines how many hit points you have as you level up. Like with wizards being the lowest with a D6, which is crazy few hit points.
The definition of glass cannon there, I think you'll find.
Oh my god, yeah, the glassest of cannons. And then sorcerer and stuff as well. Bard, maybe a little bit, depends how you spec them, because some bards can wear armor and stuff like that.
I don't think I'd necessarily I don't think Bard necessarily has... Well, I suppose it can depend on your subclass, but in general, I don't think Bard necessarily would be the damage output that I would put in glass cannon, though.
No, that's fair, actually. Yeah, sorry, I got caught up on the casters thing. Probably not that.
Warlock.
Actually, Druid.
A Druid for sure. Although Circle of the Moon Druid, though, we can just put that can be Circle of the Moon Druid at one point is just unkillable. Like,
as we all know,
it's
that's
over.
Cheating.
Yeah, sir.
That's cheating.
20th level Moon Druid is cheats. It's not cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like,
it's very cool, but like you'll break your dungeon master's heart.
Well, all of these, we'll say the wizard, the sorcerer, the druid. The 3 of those I would class as glass cannons. They can do insanely powerful spells to do a high damage output, but all 3 of them have relatively few hit points and typically don't wear armor.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, like you said earlier, some of them can have ways of like mitigating that. For example, casting shield, casting counter spell. If
Mirror
you're an
image,
abjuration
blur.
wizard, you get that. I forget what's called, the abjuration shield that you kind of get as an abjuration wizard. That's kind of constantly on, and it's like a buffer of temp HP kind of.
Yeah.
I will see if I can find that now. Let's find out what's called at least. Arcane Ward, that's it. So you have a few things there that will give you the ability to shrug that off as well. Like you said, the wild shape portion of a druid is a good way to, if you're in your human, I say human, your humanoid form, and you take a few hits, and you're like, oh, I've only got 20 hit points left. Great, I'll just I'll wild shape into a T-Rex or a giant ape, and then I've got 100 and something hit points when you got a giant ape. So it's a good way to like mitigate that, and they're like, okay, I'm going to stop casting for a while, and I'm just going to smash things with my giant ape fists.
That happened in my game last night.
Was it Mike that did it?
Yeah.
Because he used to do it in my campaign as well. He used polymorph, and he just turned into a giant ape.
Yeah, but see, in this game, he has a fire spirit that doesn't have the immutable form feature that every other elemental has, so it can be polymorphed.
That's so broken.
Yeah, that turned into a giant ape fair quick.
See, I warned you about this. I told you, when Mike comes into your game as a spellcaster, watch him. He can't be trusted. He'll find these little fucking loopholes.
No, I know.
I'm angry for you.
To be fair, it's cool. It's opened up a lot of cool visual stuff, because I say that even when he polymorphs it narratively, it still looks like a fire spirit, but like an ape fire spirit.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm stealing visual inspiration from all the tailpiece from Naruto as well. So it's just like, this is perfect.
I'm watching. I'm getting quite far. I'm like 70 something episodes into Naruto at the moment.
Very nice.
I'm enjoying it immensely.
Yeah. But we'll continue with our list
here.
We'll
go on to that. But anyway, yes.
Once we're finished this, we'll have an hour to chat.
Those are all the typical glass cannons I would have gone for, and like you said, they ways of mitigating it. The damage type that they take, even though they have very few hit points typically. You can mitigate that stuff again. Another thing, like you mentioned, rogue is not something I would have considered a glass cannon, but I'm like, that they absolutely are. Especially like
same hit die as the ones you mentioned as well.
Same hit die. They typically have a light armor. Now, again, you can go very, very high dex and get a decent armor class. But you have relatively low hit points. But then your sneak attack is that's the cannon part of the glass cannon. You're doing a ton of d6s in damage.
And they're given a couple more damage mitigation tools, because they are at least have the option of being frontliners. As a standard, like most rogues will take up the double daggers. Like a lot of them will.
Yeah, but you can go
Archer
and take a rapier.
Yeah. Oh yes, absolutely.
And you can absolutely be a frontline as well. And I could be wrong actually. Am I?
If you take the right feats and have the right armor and the right mixture of
that's the thing.
Fighting style stuff, you can get a rogue up to like 20 armor class in like light armor.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, like very achievable, very achievable.
Particularly if any of your gear is magical.
Oh god, don't even get started on that. What do they have here? Just let me double check something.
For rogues?
They don't. Okay, I was checking to see if they have a shield as a proficiency. They do not.
No. I think
you could pick a race, or if you multi-class at all. Yeah. I mean,
some of your subclasses will give you stuff like that.
Like a rogue in light armor, right? We'll say studded leather, and then if you manage to get a +5 in your dex, that's 17. Multi-class, a couple levels into fighter, get a fighting style. That's another +1 if you take defense. And then
take dual wielder, and that's a +1 when you've both your daggers drawn.
Yeah. Or I was going to say, if you're going the swashbuckler route again, take there's a feat. God, my brain is all over this today. Is it a duelist feat? Where you basically use your reaction to add your proficiency bonus, I want to say.
Is that the defensive dueler? I think is that called?
Could be,
because dueling is the one where you get +2 damage to attack rolls from when you use a weapon in one hand.
Yes. Yeah. You add your proficiency bonus to your AC as a reaction when you're wielding a finesse weapon and nothing else, I believe.
Yeah, there are. So you can get up there and it is absolutely possible. And I think as well with rogues, it is because they tend to be closer to the front lines, where they can actually be like a frost giant can reach out and just go squish.
Yeah, I tend to think of them like I always think of combat in like three layers. And like there's front line, middle, and then back line, you know?
Yeah.
And I always think of rogues as being in the middle.
Totally.
Because occasionally they're going to want to get right up to someone, use that flanking, or use the fact that your paladin or barbarian is in close quarters with this creature, run up, stab, and then run away.
Yeah.
And get that sneak attack. So they're like second line creatures or classes, I should say.
I think you bring up a really good point there, and that's in terms of like how you want to play your glass cannon. We talk about like you've a high damage output and you've low survivability. So ideally you want to be as far away from combat as you can be while still able to output your damage. So if you're a rogue and you're using daggers, you're unless you're throwing them, you're going to need to be right up there. In which case you're going to need to be careful, or you're going to need to kind of go in and out, kind of phase in and out of the front lines, like attack and kind of.
It's going to be a case with your dash ability. That's pretty doable. It's run in, hit someone, run back.
Exactly. Yeah. With your spellcasters, then I think you want to I think like the closest you want to get to the front to like where the front line of the combat is, or just in general is like medium range. You want to stay far back.
You never want to be in that front line.
Blast your spells.
Yeah, have all your fighter, your paladin, your bard, or your barb. Sorry, not your bard. Have them all in the front line and have them engaging the enemy that they're like occupying them, and then you're hanging back and you're slinging spells from at a distance.
Absolutely.
And doing a ton of damage with them. Even cantrips at higher levels are multiple D8 or multiple D10s in some cases, you know. You can do a ton of damage just by hanging back. And
I do believe you absolutely wrecked Lug with a 12th level poison spray there a few months ago.
Yeah, oh yeah. Sure.
Tankiest member of our entire party, and I was just like, oh god, oh no.
Yeah, not against poison, so just poison into the face.
That was rough, but that's a perfect example of like a kind of a glass cannon, because you played that whole thing where he was hanging back and letting the big tanky monster come after us, and we had to deal with that and then try and deal with him too.
That was very much his for context. I had a necromancer. And he had a flesh golem as his companion, and he would send the flesh golem in to engage in close quarters, and he would kind of sling spells from behind. But that's because I know that he's not nearly as tanky as the flesh golem, so I let the flesh golem take the hits. Also, I don't care if the flesh golem dies, but I care if the baddie dies. I want the baddie to try and survive so that he can live to fight another day or live to taunt you another day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's sort of like I just thought of there because that's basically the perfect example of how you want to play your glass cannon. Is you want to let your more like your allies with more hit points, better armor class, who kind of specialize in that melee upfront combat. You want your fighters, your barbarians, your paladins, your martial classes. You want to leave them handle the upfront and kind of be that meat wall between you and whatever horrible beastie is trying to like tear your insides out.
Yeah, it's worth noting actually as well as being like the purpose of what we're talking about now is a glass cannon. It's someone who doesn't really get into the thick of it, but can hang back and just destroy people over a wide range or a wide area at a distance. It's worth noting that whether you're talking about Druid, Rogue, Sorcerer, Wizard, those four we kind of mentioned, all of those have other specialty uses as well. Like rogues are very good at picking locks or sneaking in and scouting ahead. Wizards often have a lot of other, and sorcerers and druids often have a lot more spells that are not just damaging, but can be like, oh, I need for someone to be smaller to fit through this hole. Oh, I can cast enlarge or reduce enlarge and make them this tall so they can walk in through the little crack or whatever. Druids have healing magic, which the other three do not have. And can, well, it depends on subclasses, but we won't get into that. But druids have healing magic, so they can also kind of serve as a little bit of a backline healer.
They're good healers too. They're good healers. As well then with... Nope, it's gone. I had a point there and it's entirely gone. It was about the other two. Sorry. Nope, that's just not happening today. But in that case, I think in summary, glass cannon, you have high damage output, relatively low survivability, hit points, that kind of thing, and you want to try and keep your enemies at a distance so you can just pepper them with spells and kind of deal damage.
I think that the four recommendations are your Druid, rogue, sorcerer, wizard are kind of the four that come to mind when I think of glass cannons.
I think, and out of all of them, probably the most glass cannon of all is the wizard.
Oh, hands down. No armor and a D6 hit dice is tough.
Yeah,
it's very, very tough.
The trade-off is you can cast disintegration.
Yeah, the trade-off is you get access to the most amount of spells.
Yeah.
Wizards get more spells in their spell list than anyone else. So your versatility is huge, but if someone slaps you with a sword, even once, depending on your level, you could be in trouble. So
yeah, it's the way the game is built is whatever you're good at, there's very much a trade-off for. So with glass cannons, you usually have a wide range of damage options to choose from and can do a serious amount of damage. So as a trade-off for that, you're not the most survivable.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think what jumps to your mind when you think of like a player role, Conor?
A player role, something I never thought I would play. I like, even in video games, I typically play the stealthy, dexy, maybe bow and arrow wielding type. But someone that I never would have thought I'd enjoyed playing, and I actually loved it, was playing a tank.
Yes. Tank is the way.
I was never a person who was like, I want to be the beefiest person who everyone else attacks, and I just kind of take it. But when I started playing Aratak, who was a Triton Storm Herald Barbarian,
very cool.
I tell you, like, you get some high off of wading into a sea of enemies. I played a bit where I was on top of a long crenellated wall, and basically like a corridor, and there was just goblins in the dozens coming at me. And they had swords, and they were hitting me multiple times. And a good few of the hits went through, but every time the hit would go through, the DM would be like 6, 3, 4, 2, 5, 2. And I'm just halving all the damage. And it's really, really fun to be like if you want to just be someone who can take a hit and the bit in Age of Ultron where it doesn't Tony in the Hulkbuster suit punch the Hulk at one point, and the Hulk just looks at him, spits out some teeth, and Tony's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And that's
excellent.
You're basically the Hulk. You can shrug off so much damage when you're a tank for various reasons. But yeah, tank is something that's very, very fun to play.
Yeah, you're with a tankier class. You generally exist in the front lines, and your job is normally to protect, to disrupt, and sometimes to crowd control. In terms of you quite often you'll have something like a stun or a fear, or some way to impede enemy movement or ability as well. Classic examples of tanks. Your fighter, your barbarian is the uber tank in D&D.
Oh yeah, your barbarian, and especially your bear totem.
Yes,
their rage ability gives them the ability to be resistant to every type of damage except psychic.
Yeah,
which, if I'm being honest, doesn't come up a whole lot. So it's an incredibly beefy tank. You're taking half damage on everything. They're the quintessential tank.
I would put if we're talking about barb subclasses just briefly, I would put the Zealot Barbarian up there as well, because at one point you are literally too angry to die.
Yeah, they have a thing where if they drop to 0 hit points, as long as they're still raging, they will keep on fighting until their rage ends, and then they'll fall unconscious.
Yeah.
So they will, even with no hit points, they'll just keep on going. Which is an insane ability, a really cool ability, but it's insane.
I would also put your paladins up there. I would put them up there as tanks as well, because you can. They're kind of your classic D&D tank, almost your sword and board paladin. Your knight in shining armor with the shield, the great shield and the sword.
Paladins and fighters have proficiency in all armor and weapons, meaning that once you kind of get the gold and afford it in game, you can have full plate armor, 18 armor class, take a fighting style that is your defense, that's 19, and then have a shield, maybe a +3 shield, and then you're having 20 plus armor and a base, and then that's one thing you did. I stupidly gave you a +3 shield in our previous campaign because I rolled it on a random table, and then decided, you know what, Conor, you're going to commit to this. But that gave you 23 armor class as a base, and then you used to cast Spear...
Haste. Shield of Faith and Haste were the two ones I cast, and they both boosted my AC.
Yeah, you cast... Was Shield of Faith not concentration as well?
I would alternate. because
No, you don't.
haste is a 3rd level spell, whereas Shield of Faith is only a 1st. But and both
so
give you
you would
plus
Shield
2.
of Faith, and then that's another +2. So you would have a base of 25 armor class when we were in like the 16, 17, 18, 19 levels towards the end, and it was absolutely insane. And you would take hits, and the thing is, even when I'd hit you, like first of all, even at that level, a lot of like monsters that you would be put up against would have +10 or more to hit, and I was still failing to hit you an awful lot of the time.
I'm sorry, I can't keep a straight face because I just remember how ridiculous it was.
Yeah, it's fun. Being a tank is fun because you're kind of ignoring one of the core components of the game, which is like taking damage in a fight. It's like it happens, but it doesn't really matter because you have so much health, and you have such high armor that half the attacks will miss you, and the half that hit you barely made a dent in you, and it's such a power trip.
Oh, it's so great
to be able to do that.
It's like you just nullify. It's the great thing about like particularly with tanks is like you essentially just nullify someone for a round, almost, because like, geez, like I'm just thinking of it like Grog from Critical Role. That man would get crit by like some ungodly abomination from like the 9th level of hell, and it would do like it would do like 40 points of damage or something. Like it would hit him hard, and he would just be like, "Cool, so I'm raging, so that's half to 20 already." Stone's Endurance, yeah. Okay, that's a D12 plus my con. I have 5 con, so that's another 7. Cool, I take 3 damage from your crit.
Yeah.
And that, I think that is the perfect example of like why it's fun to play at a tank. Like, and you can you're just all about making everyone pay attention to you and try and focus on you so that everyone else can do what they want to do. And you just
what's that feat that Ross took?
Which one?
Is a heavy armor master?
Yes,
it is. Yeah. Okay, this is like if you were to read this, right? And honestly, I read this myself, and if anyone else reads this first time playing the game, you might think 3 points of damage. It's fucking stacks. So what this thing does, heavy armor master feat. While you're wearing heavy armor, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage that you take from non-magical weapons is reduced by 3. So you take 3 points off. Someone hits you with a sword. And they do 12 points, they do 9 points. That might only seem like a little bit of health off the top, right? But again, if you're going to hit multiple times in a round, that stacks up so fast. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And there was a time Ross was playing, was it Valas?
Valas, yeah, his Dragonborn Paladin.
His red Dragonborn Paladin. Was it red?
Yes, red, he was, yeah.
Yeah. So red Dragonborn Paladin. And we were in a room, and there was a ton of enemies, and it was just a big mob. Loads of us were kind of thrown into.
I know exactly what it was. It was a room of animated armor because it was me me and him went into a room because there was like I think there was an axe on us. There was an axe on the stand. That's where I got my axe. Yeah. There was an axe on the stand, and we went.
Portcullis came down.
Yeah, and then like Portcullis comes down, and there's just suits of armor lining the walls on 3 sides, and we're like, no, 2 sides, and we're like, oh crap. I was like, okay, we'll lift this, we're strong, and we go to lift it, and then all the suits of armor just came alive. And I was at one end and he was at the other, and he just walked through the middle of the took an opportunity attack.
And the DM was even like, okay, you're gonna take like 5 opportunity attacks. He's like, yeah, that's fine. Okay. And then he I think like at least 3 of them missed, and the 2 that hit him did no damage. Because again, he's taken off 3 points of damage on each one.
Yeah, and he just walked to get in position, turned around, flame breath.
That might be the cockiest thing I've ever seen anyone do in D&D, and I to this day I still love it. It's one of the best things I've ever seen.
Oh, it was so perfect. Like, and the fates were just with him that day. And like that's what you do with a tank, is that you just maybe not that because that's a bit irresponsible, but like you try.
You'll try this at home now, and you'll get 5 immediate crits on you.
I know, what your main duty, your main job is to stand in front of the squish, which is that your glass cannons and your spellcasters and your healers, and you draw fire from them. And the main way to do it is by pissing them off so much by just not going down, and then you hit them really freaking hard back.
Yeah.
That's kind of tanking in essence, really. You're the disruptor, the protector, and occasionally the damage.
Yeah, all the tanks do, again, not as high as like high-level spellcasting damage, but all the tanks do like very, very good. Yeah. They'll either do multiple attacks, or their attacks get extra dice of damage on top of it, or something like that.
Nearly all of them.
Take for example the the Storm Herald
Yeah.
Barbarian. They have a bonus action ability where they can just do either lightning, fire, or cold damage, depending on the storm type you take, to someone else as a bonus action. Is it Berserker Barbarians, when they go into their Frenzied Rage, get a bonus action additional attack?
Yeah.
So they do a lot of damage as well, but their main thing is I can stand here surrounded by 5 people, and they can keep hitting me with swords and axes and everything else and claws, and I can take it though. I have so much health, and I'm able to shrug off so much of that health, of that damage, that it doesn't matter to me, and I'll happily take all the hits while my allies are back there.
Hell yeah.
Throwing spells and healing me and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely, and that's a great segue into what I think is I think that we're doing. I think we've accidentally gone in order of sort of the three of the core, but also I would count as some of the most important roles you can play, which is the damage, the tank, and this one is the healer.
Yes,
an often neglected role, because people and it's something I was guilty of earlier in my career, play D&D as well, is people just have kind of an aversion to playing the healer. And I think it comes from maybe video games where your healing character doesn't tend to get to do much other than healing, or maybe armor buff spells. But in D&D, your healers will fuck you up.
Oh, 5th edition clerics are insane.
Oh my!
They can churn out so much health, and then as well as that, they also get really destructive offensive spells as well.
I have 2 words: inflict wounds.
Inflict wounds, yeah, exactly. Is that does a lot of damage, and even Toll the Dead, which is a cantrip, but when that levels up, that Toll the Dead, I believe, has the effect where if the enemy already has taken some damage, instead of rolling d10s, you roll d12.
Yes.
And again, that scales up like other cantrips, and you're rolling a bunch of d12s off necrotic damage, which is insane.
Is that 3d12 by level 12, or is that 2d12?
At 11th level, I think would be the. It'll be 1, and then 5th level 2, and then 11th level would be.
There are 4th level spells that don't roll. Yeah. Stuff that high.
Cantrips are crazy powerful by end game. You're doing at least 2nd to 3rd level spells worth of damage. Oh, hold on a second. My monitor wants to turn off.
Yeah. No problem.
All good. I fixed it.
But yeah. I think a good thing to give an idea of is your example. So you straight away, probably the best one you brought out there was the cleric, particularly the life cleric, because they get bonuses and that for their healing, for healing people, because they're specialized in it. They're pretty crazy. We mentioned earlier the Druid as well. The Druid gets access to some really good healing spells and other kind of stuff like greater restoration and lesser restoration as well, where you can
not as wide of a range.
As clerics, but still not as good. But healers, still, just to give more examples, because you've got the cleric, you've got the Druid. Depending on certain subclasses, sometimes some unusual healers like your Divine Soul Warlock, they get cleric spells, so they can actually heal.
Yeah. The Celestial Sorcerer. Is it Celestial Warlock, Divine Soul Sorcerer?
Sorry, that's it. Yeah, it's Celestial Warlock and Divine Soul Sorcerer. Both of them get access to healing spells because they're tied to celestial stuff.
If you wanted to play something that is also, let's say, like a glass cannon, like a sorcerer, but then gets a ton of healing, play the Divine Soul.
Yes.
Because they're the only class in the game where you get access to the entire sorcerer spell list and the entire cleric spell list right from level 1. Level 1. It's absolutely bonkers.
It's very cool. If the Strix from not Strix. She's the Warlock. Sorry, she's not a sorcerer.
She's a Warlock, isn't she? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, that's the other one. And as well, then Paladin. Paladin can cast a bunch of healing spells. You also have Lay on Hands.
Lay on Hands is such a cool and versatile ability.
Hell yeah! Lay on Hands, you can neutralize. You can you basically get a reserve of hit points that you can expend to do certain things. Obviously to heal, but you can also you can sacrifice 5 hit points from your total of your Lay on Hands, and you can just straight up neutralize any poison as an action, which is crazy.
And the amount you have is equal to 5 times your level, which is like by 20th level you have 100 hit points just in a pool that you can distribute at will.
It's very, very useful, and a lot of the times as well, if you're playing a Paladin, you can use that to keep yourself topped up, so your allies can focus on healing other people. And it also frees you up to use your healing spells on other people as well. because you can self-sustain with your lay on hands, and even if you don't use that, you can just go out and straight up use your lay on hands. Like it's a fantastic way to supplement your healing with your own spells, and then if you run out of spell slots, you still have your lay on hands that you can do stuff with.
So I wanted to give an honorable mention here for one of my favorite tanky classes that's also a healer.
Oh, excellent.
This bit of crossover between the tank and the healer here. The Forged Cleric.
Yes.
You want to play
oh my god, I love
healer,
the Forged Cleric.
It's so cool. So the Forged Cleric, two of the coolest abilities it gets here, right? By 6th level, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Is at 1st level, you can you gain the ability to imbue a magic into weapon or armor. At the end of a long rest, you touch one non-magical suit of armor or simple martial weapon. God damn it, Conor, use your mouth. Until the end of our next long rest, or until you die, the object becomes a magic item, granting a +1 bonus to AC if it's armor, or a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls. So you get a +1 bonus just when you wake up. You just go boop. Okay, this armor I'm wearing now has a +1 bonus, and that you get to keep that for the rest of the day until the next day, where you can decide to do the same thing again, no cost. That's really cool in and of itself. These are also one of the clerics that get proficiency in heavy armor.
Yes.
So later in the game, you can purchase plate armor and have 19 and wield a shield and have 21 armor class as a base. At 6th level,
I knew you were going to mention this.
Yeah, at 6th level, you gain resistance to fire damage, which kind of goes part and parcel with the whole forge thing. But then while wearing heavy armor, you gain a +1 bonus to AC, which stacks with your other ability. So at a base, you have 22 armor class. Then as a cleric, because you have a ton of spells, one of those spells, and I think you get it as part
Shield of Faith is a cleric spell.
It's a cleric spell. You don't get it as part of your Forged Cleric domain spells, but that's one 1st level spell you can take that gives you a +2, which means when you wade into combat, you have 24 armor class at 6th level.
Yeah,
conceivably, like it's really, really good. And then you have a ton of healing spells, so that if you do take a hit, heal yourself up, no problem.
Yeah, and that's when your DM starts introducing multiple spellcasters with the spell magic.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, as someone who has played a character with 25 armor class, dear God, it feels amazing.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah, with your healer, then the way you want to play a healer is, again, I would class healers almost like in between the mid row and the back row, in that you want to be close enough to heal the front row, but you want to be away from the center of combat.
Well, I would say it can go either way based on the subclass. Like some of the, take for example, the Forged Cleric. Of course,
yeah.
They get the extra fire damage on a weapon attack.
Yes.
I believe it has to be melee, does it?
I think that's is that their version of Divine Strike?
It is a Divine Strike.
Yeah,
they
so
get
every
fire damage on weapons.
Yeah, I think most clerics will get something similar, where when you hit someone with a melee weapon, you'll do like an additional die of radiant damage usually, I think.
It depends on the subclass.
Yeah.
I think actually nature ones get to pick between lightning, fire, or cold.
Oh, that's very cool. That's very cool.
It's not even like at the start of the day. You just pick when you make the hit. Which is
really, that's really cool. So cool. I need to read Nature Cleric again.
I know, right? But like we'll say some of them have so they always get a Divine Strike at level 8.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them get an ability to augment a weapon attack with some additional damage, and the type of damage differs based on the subclass. And then other ones will be like, if it's like the Knowledge Cleric, for example, they get to add their Wisdom modifier to the damage done by cantrips. So you normally wouldn't add that in, but you could hit someone with a cantrip and do your 3d8 roll or whatever, and then you might just add an extra 4 or 5 on top of that based on whatever your Wisdom mod is. And again, that stacks up, and that is for free.
Hell yeah!
So that's kind of the that kind of dictates which is this subclass meant to be more of a caster or more of a combatant, like a martial character, because clerics do straddle that line a little bit. And then based on that, you can kind of judge, right, if I'm more of the castery sort, I should probably be hanging back in like 2 or 3, those 2 or 3 rows. But if I'm more of the combatant sort, I can be up close in the fight.
Cleric.
Yeah, I can be up close. I can be either the first row or second row, which works, which is great because clerics are really versatile like that.
Hell yeah.
Depending on how you want to build them.
And Yeah, but just in I suppose if you are going for that life cleric, that classic healer, in general, it is kind of your job to like stay out of the fray. But yeah, hell yeah,
Yeah.
if
Well,
you're
you
playing,
need to stay standing because if you go down, there's no one to get you back
oh
up.
god, yeah. But like if you're playing like a war cleric, like you're given proficiency with martial weapons for a reason, my friend. Pick up a great sword and have a great time.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Oh, that's a t-shirt. Pick up a great sword and have a great time. On it, we're on it. Cool, yeah, but yeah, that's kind of your classic healer, and again, like probably the epitome of the healer in D&D would be your life cleric.
Yeah, but again, if you want to play
Yeah,
someone who can heal but also serves,
hell yeah,
you want to be a bit more martial and stuff as well. Play a paladin. Paladins
yes,
are honestly probably the one of the most versatile classes
one of
in
the
5e. Like,
100%. It definitely one of the best designed, most versatile, and I could say from having played a full campaign as one of the most satisfying classes to play.
oh yeah, you do a lot of damage output. You do a bit of healing. You do a bit of tanking.
Got
They really cover a lot of roles.
lot of utility as well. They're
Yeah, a
really
lot of
fun.
utility.
No, I think the next one, which is a good one to talk about, because you had some thoughts about this earlier when we were talking about the software. So I think I might leave you lead off with this, but it's your range damage character. So you're like your for, I suppose, lack of a better term, your sharpshooter, your sniper.
I'll take a drink because I'll be talking for a while. Yeah, so these are definitely your row 3. They'll be your far back. Range combat in this game can, based on depending how you play it, can be very, very powerful. If you play, especially if you play someone who's like, again, range kind of fits in, I think, with glass cannon a little bit, but can also be a little bit more on the specialist route, depending who you. It's hard to say, really.
See,
range can go into a lot of different people.
See, I suppose
because you could. Sorry, go on.
we're doing this all the time. I'll just really quickly say what I suppose like the difference I would put in it is you can have I would never class a fighter as a glass cannon. I would never class a ranger as a glass cannon, really, because
they're a little tankier.
They've got the D10 hit die. They usually have got heavier armor and can wear armor, and they have more tools to survive. Which is why kind of what I was thinking of these is probably like your rangers, your ranged fighters, your gunslingers, in particular.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if we're talking about that, yeah, they're definitely. I would say you're not going to do as much damage as, say,
not to like entirely shit on your parade there. Apologies.
No, you're okay. No, honestly, I was kind of. Yeah. So you're not going to do as much damage as the glass cannon. You're doing less damage, but also you yourself are going to have a bit more survivability. You're going to have slightly better armor class. You're probably going to have proficiency in medium armor, if not heavy in some cases. Like you said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with playing an arcane archer or just playing a champion who wields a longbow and wearing plate armor.
Ranged fighters are super effective.
Yeah. And that's actually one I played for quite a long time, for a couple of years. I played a ranger. And I know I shit on the ranger class all the time. I know I'm allowed to, right? I lived it. I've earned the right to complain about this. But the ranger, like we said before, has recently been tweaked in Tasha's Cauldron.
Yes.
It's now actually, I think it's actually. I always thought ranger had a lot of versatility. It's just a lot of its core abilities fall down pretty hard right out the gate. But now that they've given you these alternate abilities, you take those instead, or you mix and match. You can make a really cool class that honestly I would consider playing again. It's really, really fun playing a range character because in some cases the DM forgets you're there. Which I had the experience of for quite a while. I know I attribute some of this to the fact that we bought custom miniatures on Hero Forge. At the time, Hero Forge was using this transparent or semi-transparent plastic for their high detail models, and I had one of those, and everyone else painted their minis and I didn't, and I just hadn't gotten around to it. But I kind of copped after a while that when this mini is sitting on it's kind of an off-white translucent color, it's kind of the same color as the wet erase hex mat that we were using, and I was convinced that when it would come to the DM's turn or the monster's turn, the DM would look at the board and would flat out. I was convinced he just forgot I was there. He couldn't see my mini, and he's going, "Who will I attack? Who will I attack?" And he's only seeing the rest of the team. But I rolled very high on stealth. But yeah, like range characters, because they're so far out, can like obviously that was a very unique situation.
Yeah.
But because they're so far away, usually, I mean, any short bow, long bow is going to put you easily like 100 feet out. You can be comfortably 160, 80 feet out. Is it worth the DM's time to send a goblin or a hobgoblin or whatever out that far to go and get you when you're probably going to shoot him full of arrows 3 times before he gets there?
Yeah, like that's like most creatures can move like 30 to 40 feet. Like on average, that's like 3 turns worth of movement, or even worse. Like that's like at the best, it's probably like 30 feet, so 2 turns worth. But that's using your movement and your action. Just that's 2 turns where you spend your entire turn running at this bowman who's going, cool. I have a target that gets bigger.
It gets bigger, and it's just running in a dead straight line right for me. Of course I'm gonna fucking fire at that guy. It can be great, like in that case, because you get to hang back in the third row, well out of range. If you take like the sharpshooter feat, you have better range as well. Then as long as you can clearly see the enemy, and if it's a clear day or the open fields or something like that, there's absolutely nothing to say that you can't see an enemy 200 feet down the way and easily shoot them, because that's what sharpshooter lets you do with no disadvantage. And you can be like very good. I'm actually worried about our upcoming game, because like I said this earlier on, I realized that I left Gavin, our blood hunter, who is a bow wielder. He hung back while a couple other people went to investigate something. When they got there, an ambush was sprung on them, and now I'm like, oh, well, they won't be able to get to these other guys. Oh, and that's right, they're like 80 feet away, and Gavin has a longbow. So Gavin's just going to stay exactly where he is and still be doing damage every single round.
Yeah.
And I don't care that I'm saying this, and he'll listen to this and be like, oh, that's a great idea, Conor. I'll do that to ruin your game. He's going to do it anyway. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I suppose that's the great thing about range, is that if you can abuse your range in that way, like you contribute.
Abuse. It's just using what you have to your advantage.
I suppose abuse is probably a bad way to phrase it, I suppose, but that's a term.
It's only abuse when it's been used against me, Martin. Yes. I'm allowed to do it all the time.
Yeah, a term I picked up from video games, unfortunately. But yeah, if you can just like properly utilize that range, it's crazy, because you can contribute the exact same amount that you would standing right beside the person from like 100 feet away, and you ain't taking damage. And there's a spell might reach you, but there aren't that many monsters with spells that can go like 120 feet. Like,
yep, a longbow is a D8. It's the same damage as a longsword up close. Like when I was playing Baskine, who was the ranger. I'm honest to God, I genuinely think there was weeks, if not a couple of months, where I would just go without ever being hit. I would take no damage because I'd hang back and I just pick people off from a distance. And it's also very satisfying. But there's something kind of just satisfying, and maybe it's just me. I like the whole archery thing. There's some kind of satisfying about being really far back and then like Legolas style spotting someone running and doing the whole like I aim at them, I aim where they're going to be, I loose, and then the two of them kind of collide like that, and you just pick someone off from really far away. It's really cool to think
it's
about.
The same reason why like if you like playing like a sniper in like first person shooter games, it's the exact same feel. It's exactly like that, except you have way more control over what you do than you would in a first person shooter game.
And Gunslinger falls into that as well. You know, if you're playing a sniper at range like that, or even like it doesn't even have to be 80, 100, 120 feet away. You can just play someone who like a gunslinger who maybe wields 2 pistols, and you can kind of still be relatively involved in the fight. But you can still just be like, I'm going to hang back 20, 30 feet from the front line, and I want to shoot people from here. And you can do that comfortably without having to be like, I'm going to take a slap of a griffin's fucking claws, like, you know.
I'm just actually looking, because I have an about to be gunslinger in my party at the moment, and
this is correct,
so it's something I'm planning for in my future, is having to deal with sniper rifle bullets from long range.
Oh, I have a question for you, actually.
Shoot.
So I think now when you're
sorry, that was unintentional.
Shoot. Oh, very good. We're such a funny podcast. Everyone should subscribe.
Yes, do please share, like, subscribe. Praise the algorithm.
But you So I think now in your campaign, I'm not in it, but I hear things. We talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
Your people, or your players, I should say, have now left Cirith Lowry, correct?
Oh, they're long gone there now. They left, and then they had some downtime, and then after that downtime, we actually had some players leave and some new players come in, which is where Mike joined the party. So it's been about 3 months in game since they've left, and then they've been on their current mission for probably the bones of about a month and a half to 2 months, just including travel time, because they've been traveling to and from areas a lot. But yeah, they're about probably like the bones of 2 months into their current quest.
So I was just thinking, when it came to, obviously you're saying that your player is now about to become a gunslinger.
Yeah, his next level he'll hit his archetype.
Has he been using pistols up until now?
Yes, he has. He has been. Yeah, but he was a swashbuckler, and swashbucklers get martial weapons.
Oh, well, my question was more so, how did you handle him using pistols in Cirith Lowry, which is, for those of you who don't know, a half underwater city of sea elves?
And nearly the entirety of that particular arc did take place underwater. I think a lot of the time, if I'm being totally honest, I forgot about it. Because... if I
pulled my earphones really hard, that hurt.
Because, like, you know yourself, you're running a game and you're focusing on initiative and who's next and monster abilities, and like you'll often forget, like, oh, you know, this person's rage should have dropped because they haven't hit anything, or this thing only lasts for 3 turns, or, you know, I need to make a con save for this person, and, you know, just a lot of the time, I kind of, when he pulled out a pistol, I just went, yeah, shoot. But I think I probably gave some narrative in-world reason for it at the time. But as well, he has a flame tongue dagger, which is like a homebrew thing I did, which is basically just like a flame tongue sword, but shoot down into a dagger size. And he's a big fan of that, so that got used an awful lot. And he usually would go like flame tongue dagger and a rapier, and he would like stab.
Did that work underwater as well? The flame tongue?
Magic flames, Conor.
Does it specify that in the item? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, I suppose.
I don't know off the top of my head, but magical flames.
My train of thought here was guns underwater, and then I immediately went to, oh, you're gone from Cirith Lowry. That's probably for the best, because I know Mike is playing a wildfire druid, and I'm like, does that mean his spirit would like appear underwater and immediately snuff out?
I don't think I'd be that cruel.
Yeah.
We've gone completely off kilter here.
Completely off topic.
But I had an in-world narrative thing where they had almost like a face hugger, but it attached to their neck and allowed them to operate and maneuver underwater without any impediment. So I'd say just for sake of people being able to actually use their shit, I think I would have ignored it, even if I didn't write that into the thing saying, you know, the flames cannot be extinguished by non-magical means.
Fair enough.
Cool. And then, like, I suppose the last one I wanted to cover is something that we've kind of already covered. There's actually 2, and we've kind of already covered them off a little bit, which would be your blaster and your upfront fighter. Your blaster is your your mage or glass cannon spellcaster that has specifically specialized into like stuff like fireball, disintegrate, like lightning bolt, chain
wizard is a good one.
Yes, it is basically Evocation Wizard.
Yeah, it's that exact subclass. Or like there's a lot of sorcerers that can do that as well.
Yes.
Storm Soul, the Storm Sorcerer.
Yes.
They have a thing where if they cast a spell, they can strike someone with electricity within so many feet of them as well. 1 second. You go on. I'll pull it up here.
Yeah, that one's good. I'm DMing one right now. The wildfire druid is an absolutely incredible blaster. Just melts things around it, literally, because, you know, often burns it alive. But yeah, those are your kind of blasters. Are the ones you're like usually specialized in, like your large area of effect, high damage kind of spells. You're, like I said, like your fireballs, like your chain lightning, stuff like that. And then as you get into the higher level, stuff like Meteor Swarm, which is just one of my favorite spells in the entire game, because, oh god, that's crazy.
Destructive Wave is quite good.
Oh, I love Destructive Wave. Is one of the coolest visually, where you just smack the ground and just like the whole ground like ripples.
It's Iron Fists when he's in the office building.
Yes,
the ground and everything just shatters around.
Yes, the only time that show was cool, and I say this as someone who loves Iron Fist. Oh god,
Actually, I was looking here. The storm sorcerer. What's it called? Storm sorcerer. Yeah. It's just called Storm Sorcery. It's called Heart of the Storm. It's a 6th level ability. You gain resistance to lightning and thunder, but when you cast a spell of 1st level or higher that deals lightning or thunder damage, magic erupts from you, and then you choose if eruption causing creatures of your choice you can see within 10 feet to take lightning or thunder damage equal to half your sorcerer level. And that's as many as you want. There's no limit on how many creatures. So if you wade into a group of enemies, hit them with I don't know, some sort of thunder or lightning spell, and then follow up. It's just a free action. It just happens when you cast a spell. Every other creature takes at that level 3 damage, but that will scale up to 10 by the time you cap out, which is really cool. So you can be up close blaster as well.
Oh hell yeah! And just that the way you want to play that is kind of similar to your glass cannon. You want to kind of mostly avoid being on the front lines of it and kind of just keep a distance and just blast people. And usually your spells will require that as well. Some of them anyway, stuff like fireball. I'm just what I'm thinking of really. Yeah, what's that? Isn't it that famous meme? I didn't ask how big the room was. I said I cast fireball.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to be that kind of like, you can be a mid-range blaster as well, where you don't have to be right up on someone, but you can be 15, 20 feet back comfortably,
totally.
Especially if they're engaged with someone else, and you can hit them over your ally's shoulder.
Yeah, most range spells have like a range of like 30 feet at least anyway.
At least, yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't think you'd have any problem being in that kind of middle range and still, being able to. You can absolutely a very effective blaster.
Yeah, but I suppose blaster is probably a little more short range than your glass cannon, maybe if you want to delineate them that way. I suppose, but I suppose the way
I would say blaster is a sub variation
of glass cannon.
Glass cannon.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. I suppose, and then another variation that then will be your caster, who has like other spells that like aren't necessarily so focused on the like AoE area of effects, like blow everything up in an area kind of spells.
You can have actually, well, that kind of actually works on a couple levels, because it just as an addendum to that, you can be if we call it a healer, you can more generalize that and call it support.
Yes.
And play something like an Abjuration Wizard, or someone who can cast haste or Shield of Fate. I think Shield of Fate's yourself actually, but you can cast haste. Or a bunch of other spells that will buff out. You can cast Enlarge.
I think support is also where Bard is king.
Yes, Bard is kind of definitely, especially with the innate ability to use
Bardic Inspiration.
Or Bardic Inspiration. Bards are made to be the support
class, they're so good, and like you can still do a lot of damage and pick up some really and pick up some really interesting stuff. Has my camera died for you as well?
You are frozen for me. I can hear you.
But, you can still, if you can still hear me, it's totally fine. I'll just carry on.
But you know what? You're not frozen in a really weird kind of phase or anything like that. So
I just look like I just look like you've said something, and I'm just like Anyway, technical issues aside, which if you're an audio listener, you won't have to deal with, so it's all good.
Yeah. Just one more reason to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify.
Indeed. And then, like, just to cover off your upfront fighter, those are ones who are probably a little more damage orientated than your tanks. Monks is where I'm thinking here. Monks and fighters mostly. You could probably fit your rogue in under there as well with stuff like Swashbuckler. And
definitely, yeah.
Your job is to basically be like a sub tank. You are like if you've got a barbarian there who's being like your primary tank, your upfront fighter, like your monk or your fighter, is going to be there as like a supplementary tank. You're good at taking hits, and you're good at dishing out damage. So you can probably take a little less damage than like say your barbarian or your straight tank, but you'll probably deal maybe like a little bit more or have more damage orientated abilities. Then
I often picture monk and rogue being like, if they're frontline monks and rogues, I often picture them being like, if the barbarian or fighter or whatever is up close and they have their hands locked with someone and they're grappling them, the monk is going to come in and go, kidney shot, while that's happening.
And the rogue is behind shanking the person in the back.
Yeah, and the rogue is behind. It comes out. The rogue comes from like under your arm.
Scooby-Doo style, just out of the side of a tree.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
But Martin, sorry, you okay? I'm going to do my bit now. But Martin, I need you to respond. I can't do that.
Yes.
That's all the time we have today. God, that's all the time we have today.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Connor. So, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me here on the MicFlayers podcast. We're on YouTube and on Spotify as well. And you can also find me on Twitter at 0.Conor, ZeroPointConor, 1N. It's on the screen.
Nice. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over, which is down in the bottom right hand corner of the screen there. You can find the podcast on Twitter at MicFlayers Pod, which is also down in the very bottom right hand corner of the video. And you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Mert with 2 R's, and you can find me on Instagram at Art of Mert, where I do a lot of D&D related art. So if you want to check that out, go ahead and have a look. I'd be happy to have you. All right. With that, I think it's about time we all said goodbye. So it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Conor.
Later, folks.
All right, folks. Have a great day, and we'll see you this time next week for the MicFlayers podcast.